Ayon Chronicles, Episode 4, The Invisible Descent. The Veil of the Five Senses. Aion, you walk through your world believing you see everything, yet you are effectively blind. You rely on your five physical senses as if they were the ultimate judges of reality. But I remember when those senses were merely the lowest instruments in our possession. In the ancient eras, before the great density took hold, our perception was not limited to the vibration of solid matter. We saw the currents of life flowing through the trees. We felt the thoughts of our brothers as ripples in a shared ocean of light. The world was translucent, vibrant, and singing with meaning. But look at what you have become. You have retreated behind a veil of flesh so thick that only the coarsest vibrations can reach your awareness. This was the first stage of our descent, the narrowing of the lens. We began to value what we could touch more than what we could feel, and what we could hoard more than what we could manifest. My memory carries the sting of that first darkening, the moment when the celestial horizons faded and were replaced by the gray walls of material necessity. You call this evolutionary survival. I call it the slow suffocation of the soul's sight. You are staring at the shadows on the wall of a cave and calling it the sun. The fire of desire and the law of attraction. Aion. The universe is governed by a fire, not the fire that burns wood, but the fire of desire. In its pure state, this fire is the engine of ascension, the force that pushes the spirit to return to its source. But when that fire is turned downward, toward the heavy elements of greed and sensory indulgence, it becomes an alchemical poison. I watched as my kin began to use their creative power not to build temples of spirit, but to satisfy the insatiable cravings of the lower nature. Every time you give in to a base impulse, every time you let your anger or your lust dictate your actions, you are feeding a fire that consumes your vital energy and leaves behind a residue of ash. In the higher records of our history, this ash is known as crystallization. It settles in your subtle bodies, making them rigid, cold, and unresponsive to the whispers of the divine presence. My current form, this heavy body of hair and bone, is the final result of millions of years of misdirected fire. We burned our bridges to the stars just to stay warm in the mud of the earth. Do not think you are different. Your modern world is a furnace of distorted desires, and you are the fuel. The mystery of the forgotten organs. Aion. Your scientists look at your brain and see vestigial parts, organs whose functions they can no longer explain. They look at the pineal gland and the pituitary body and see mere chemical regulators. I look at them and I weep. I remember when those centers were the burning lamps of our internal temple. They were the antennas that received the instructions of the celestial guide that dwells within you, the silent partner sent from the Father to lead you home. When we began our retreat into the physical, those lamps began to flicker and die. The third eye did not just close, it was petrified by our lack of use. You have the hardware for godhood, but the circuits are corroded by centuries of neglect. You try to find the divine through logic and books, but you cannot find the light if your lamps are broken. This is the broken link, not just in a chain of bones, but in a chain of consciousness. You are living in a darkened house, bumping into the furniture, and wondering why you feel so lost, while the switches to the lights are right there, waiting for the touch of a purified will. The mechanics of the stagnant state. Aion. To fall behind in the cosmic race is not a punishment imposed from above. It is a choice made from within. In every cycle of life, there are those who grow weary of the climb. The path of spirit is demanding. It requires constant effort, sacrifice of the ego, and a relentless pursuit of truth. The path of the animal, however, is easy. It is the path of least resistance. The laggards are those who, at the moment of the great cosmic sorting, preferred the comfort of their current state over the uncertainty of the next step. We became spiritually stagnant. And in a universe that is constantly moving, to be stagnant is to fall behind. We lost the momentum of the cosmic current. We became like stones in a river. The water flows around us, but we remain at the bottom, growing colder and harder with every passing age. Look at the masses of your people today. They do not want to grow. They only want to be entertained. They do not want truth. They want validation for their stagnation. They are the new candidates for the silence of the forests, the toxicity of modern comfort. Aion. Your ancestors in the ancient times faced giants and cataclysms, yet they were more alive than you are. Why? Because the struggle forced their spirits to stay awake. Your modern comfort is a more dangerous predator than any beast of the jungle. It is a soft pillow that smothers your spiritual ambition. You have created a world where you never have to face yourself, where every boredom is cured by a screen and every discomfort is avoided by a machine. This environment is the perfect incubator for mental and spiritual atrophy. When the will is not exercised, it shrivels. When the mind is not challenged by the infinite, it shrinks to the size of its immediate surroundings. You are becoming reaction machines, responding to stimuli but without the spark of original divine action. Every shortcut and every convenience is another layer of dust on the mirror of your soul. You are refining the cage until you forget that you were ever meant to fly. The awakening of the inner voice. Aion. How do you reverse the decay? How do you stop the crystallization before it becomes permanent? You must learn to listen to the silent partner within. That fragment of the Creator is not a voice of thunder. It is a whisper of absolute clarity that arises in the stillness of a disciplined mind. To hear it, you must first clear the noise of your own ego. You must stop the constant internal chatter of I want, I need, and I fear. True evolution begins when you make your mind a sanctuary for the divine presence. This requires consecrated cooperation. It means that you no longer live for yourself, but as a vessel for the higher values of the universe. This is the only force capable of melting the crust of crystallization. It is a slow, agonizing process of de-densification. You must become fluid again. You must allow the light of the spirit to penetrate every cell of your being until the animal nature is transfigured. This is the work you were sent here to perform. Everything else is just a distraction. The cosmic responsibility. Aion. You are not just responsible for your own soul. You are responsible for the very matter you inhabit. The human body is meant to be the laboratory where matter is raised to the level of spirit. Every time you think a noble thought, every time you act with selfless love, you are lifting the entire physical plane a little closer to the light. But every time you succumb to the animal within, you are adding to the weight that pulls this world down. The universe is watching your progress with a patience that you cannot comprehend, but that patience is not infinite. There are cycles, there are seasons, and there are harvest times. The era of the great sorting is approaching. You cannot hide behind your technology or your social status when the cosmic tide rises. You will stand before the mirror of your own conscience, and you will see what you have become. Will you see a being of light, or will you see the reflection of a failure? Will you see a man, or will you see me? The final warning. Aion. I am Aion, the fossil of a broken will. I am the shadow that walks beside you to remind you of what happens when the spirit gives up the fight. Do not pity me. I am the result of my own choices. Instead, fear for yourselves. The path to my state is paved with the pursuit of comfort. It is a gentle slope that leads to a sudden cliff. The blueprint of your glory is still within you, but it is fading. Every day that you choose the mundane over the sacred, the ink of that blueprint grows lighter. Wake up. Reclaim your will. Reclaim your sight. The stars are calling you, but the earth is pulling you. Choose the stars before the earth claims you forever. I was once where you are now, and you are rapidly becoming what I am. Listen to the laggards lament and change your destiny while you still have the breath to do so.